welcome to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. But let's not waste no more time. Let's get right into it. So, as I said the other day, got a little bit of a new look behind me. Little less space used up. The previous set was beginning to be a little bit of an eyesore. So I have a lot more room behind me. But let's get right into it. So there was a time in 1992 where Hakeem Olajuwon was very, very close to leaving the Houston Rockets. Okay. And but before we can visit the reason why he almost left the Houston Rockets in 1992, and believe me, it was darn close. Okay. Let's go back to 1986. Okay. In 1986, they got to the NBA Finals, lost 4-2 versus the Celtics. And if you look at that roster that Houston had, it was a championship roster, okay? And it was thought of that it was going to be them and the Lakers several years battling it out in the West, okay? There was a belief that it was going to be them and the Lakers battling it out in the West, okay? So in 1986, I'm going to try to name this roster right off the top of my head, okay? Of course, you had Hakeem, you had Ralph Sampson, okay? Then you had Rodney McGray, Mitchell Wiggins, rest in peace, Mitchell Wiggins, who passed away a few days earlier. Rest in peace, Mitchell Wiggins, number 15 for the Houston Rockets. Okay. Then you had Louis Lloyd, Jim Peterson, Rodney McGray. Had a guy by the name of Hank McDowell, who went to Memphis State. Craig Elo was the 12th man on the roster. You also had Steve Harris, rookie, who was a rookie. A guy by the name of Granville Waiters. Who am I missing? Who am I missing? I think that may be all. Okay. So that was the 86 round. Oh, I'm missing John Lucas. Okay. John Lucas was also on that roster, but he was suspended. Then you had, which just came to my mind, Robert Reed, and then you had Alan Level. And Alan Level and Robert Reed were the two senior members of the Rockets. Okay. They were there for the 81 championship run that fell short against the Boston Celtics 4-2 in 1981. So they were there for that. So that was the 86 roster. And so 1987 comes. They beat the Lakers opening day. The Rockets do. But then after that, they stumbled to a 10-16 record. They pretty much stumbled out the gates with the 10-16 record, okay? Then Louis Lloyd and Mitchell Wiggins got suspended for drug violations, and it basically ended their careers, okay? It basically ended their careers, okay? Now, Louis Lloyd did come back in 1990, played briefly for the Houston Rockets. In 1990, Mitchell Wiggins did come back full time in 1990. Okay. Um, but those drug suspensions basically ended their careers, and it basically damaged team chemistry of the Houston Rockets. Okay, because not only that, Ralph Sampson was injured for a good part of the year, and now you have Hakeem left to carry the load, and the Rockets ended up finishing 42-40, lost to Seattle in 6 games in the Western Conference semifinals. Olajuwon did have 49 points in Game 6. Okay, so he was doing everything he could. So by the time 1988 rolled around, the 86 team that went to the finals was being dismantled. Okay, um, just a few games into the 87-88 season, Ralph Sampson was traded to the Golden State Warriors, along with Steve Harris, and the Rockets got back Sleepy Floyd and Joe Barry Carroll. Okay, so now you have Sampson gone. Okay, then by the time the 1989 season rolled around, um, Rodney McCray and Jim Peterson were in Sacramento. Robert Reed was in Charlotte with the expansion Hornets. Okay, so that 86 team that went to the finals was pretty much dismantled within 2 years. Okay, by the time the 1989 season rolled around, that squad was pretty much dismantled. Okay, rapidly dismantled. Okay, then they pretty much left Olajuwon as the only person. Okay, now they did acquire. Now, the Rockets did go out and sign Otis Thorpe. Okay, they did sign Otis Thorpe for the 89 season. Okay, then Vernon Maxwell came in mid-season from San Antonio in 1990 during the 1990 season. Then they got Kenny Smith in free agency for the 1990-91 season. Okay. But the Rockets were still pretty much dependent on Olajuwon, despite having Maxwell, Thorpe, Sleepy Floyd, Kenny the Jet Smith. Despite having all of them, they were still largely dependent on Olajuwon. Okay. And so Olajuwon was close with Houston owner Charlie Thomas. He had a real good relationship with Charlie Thomas. But Olajuwon took a pounding basically every game. If you may recall, he took an elbow from Bill Cartwright during the 1990-91 season. They were playing the Bulls at the Summit, and Olajuwon took an elbow. Olajuwon took an elbow to the eye, which fractured his orbital bone, missed 26 games. That's why you saw him wear the goggles for 1990-91, then virtually all of 91-92. Okay. But the bad blood started between Olajuwon and Charlie Thomas, who was the owner. Okay. Bad blood started on March 23rd, 1992, when the Rockets suspended Hakeem for refusing to play against the Sacramento Kings. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I just want to throw in a little backstory. This interesting tidbit right here. Okay. The Rockets were playing pretty poorly under Don Chaney, who had replaced Bill Fitch after the 1988 season. And so the Rockets were playing poorly at one stretch during the 91-92 season. And they had a 24-point lead against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay. They led the Timberwolves by 24. And the Houston Rockets were playing at home. Okay. They led the Timberwolves by 24 points. Somehow, some way, the Minnesota Timberwolves came back from a 24-point deficit and beat the Rockets. The Minnesota Timberwolves a team who finished 15-67 in 1992, 1992, came back and beat the Houston Rockets. The Timberwolves, one of the dreads of the NBA, came back from 24 points down to beat the Rockets at the Summit. And that basically cost Don Chaney his job. And in comes Rudy T. Okay? So, before the Kings game, Hakeem said that he felt pain in his hamstring, okay, in the fourth quarter. And after the game, they ran some tests. And they were negative. But pro athletes know who their bodies, okay? Pro athletes know who their bodies. And Olajuwon said he wasn't 100% ready to play, okay? He wasn't 100% ready to play. Unfortunately, Charlie Thomas and the general manager at that time, Steve Patterson, they didn't see it that way. They said that he's faking injury to get his contract renegotiated, okay? So the Rockets suspended Hakeem because they thought he was faking injury to renegotiate his contract. And take a look at this video from the NBA on NBC, okay? Explaining Hakeem Olajuwon's suspension from the Houston Rockets. Take a look at it.
The two biggest stories in the NBA this week involve two of the league's best centers, Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson. Now, earlier this week, the Houston Rockets suspended Olajuwon for failing to play last Saturday against the Sacramento Kings. Olajuwon claimed that his hamstring was hurt, but the team said he was merely trying to renegotiate his contract.
I think all we can do is refer to the long-standing history of Hakeem and the constant renegotiation demands and trade demands that he's made over the history of this franchise since he's been here. Those came to a head earlier in the week. His last statement to us was that if we were not willing to renegotiate the deal, then he was going to have to do what he had to do, and we were going to have to do what we had to do.
Well, last night the Rockets were in Portland without Hakeem. Clyde Drexler leading the Blazers with 19 of his game-high 26 points in the second half. On this sequence, Bernard Maxwell loses the handle. Portland fast break. Drexler to Terry Porter. The Blazers go on to the 115-95 win. Rockets have dropped the last 5 without Hakeem.
I don't think any of the guys resented. I think, as far as we're concerned, he's injured. That's what he said, and that's what we believe. You know, that's our teammate, and this is anybody in the locker room get hurt. There's no player in the locker room going to question that.
I have to deal with what is and not what will be or what was. And what is he's not here, so we have to go on and play.
I just hope it gets worked out before all the legal issues come into place. Because the only people that are going to win are going to be the lawyers.
And we are joined by our esteemed NBA insider, Pete Vesey. Pete, what's your feel of the Olajuwon situation?
Well, despite the fact that Ricky Henderson has come to Hakeem's defense,
turning on Ricky Henderson now.
I tend to side with management in this case. I talked to Leaf Ventures, who represented Hakeem through 3 renegotiations, and he bailed out of this latest one because Hakeem demanded that they go in, and he kept telling Ventress that if they didn't renegotiate, that he would sit. So I got to go along with management.
Can you see the Rockets attempting to trade Olajuwon? Very difficult these days to make that kind of deal.
Well, I think that's exactly what they've forced here. They've gone past coming back to each other at this point. After the season, I believe that the league is going to change the aggregation of salaries so that you can trade 2 or 3 guys if they add up to another guy's salary, so that there may be many more options after this year. But I believe the key one will be a Charles Barkley for Hakeem, because the marquee players fit, the salaries fit. Both teams are looking for marquee guys to sell tickets.
And that would be a blockbuster deal.
That's right. Now, they would need, I got to say something, though. They would need a center in that, and maybe they could throw in Dave Hoppin.
That's very good. Is there any reason to continue with this?
Okay. So you saw the explanation of Olajuwon's suspension from the Houston Rockets. you saw Eric Sleepy Floyd basically coming to his defense saying, hey, if he's injured, he's injured. And Kenny Smith actually came to Olajuwon's defense too, saying, hey, if he says he's injured, he's injured. And so that was basically what set off the feud between Olajuwon and Charlie Thomas. And in some ways, Steve Patterson was involved in that too. Steve Patterson said Olajuwon wanted a salary of $15 million by the time the 95-96 season rolled around, and he's going to do what he has to do. Hakeem, of course, denied the allegations, said that the contract squabble that they were going through with the Rockets was nothing new. So Olajuwon ended up saying the Rockets were more trying to destroy his reputation and or destroy his character or something like that. Olajuwon also said to basically say I was faking injury, that's more of a attack on my integrity than anything else. Okay, was Olajuwon's response. So there were reports that there were some widespread reports that Olajuwon was going to be traded to the Miami Heat. And after Olajuwon was traded to the Miami Heat, the Houston Rockets in return would get back Glenn Rice, Ronnie Cycli, and Steve Smith. But the Miami Heat did not hide it. Okay, that was the rumor that was out there. Olajuwon was going to be traded to the Miami Heat for Cycli, Rice, and Smith. That was the rumor out there. Miami Heat denied it. So I can recall Robert Horry. So I can recall Robert Horry saying when he got drafted in 1992 by the Houston Rockets, he said, growing up, being a big Olajuwon fan, I felt that my skills were a perfect match to complement his skills. So when I got drafted by the Houston Rockets, I'm looking at him saying, please don't leave. Please don't leave. So the Rockets were going to open up the 92-93 season in Tokyo versus the Seattle Supersonics, okay? And it was a 14-hour flight from Houston to Tokyo. And so Charlie Thomas was also on the flight too. And at some point during that flight, Charlie Thomas sat next to Hakeem Olajuwon. They had a conversation. And lo and behold, everything was resolved. And after everything was resolved, Hakeem eventually got his contract. And the Rockets went back-to-back NBA titles in 94, not 95. So, yeah. But it's interesting to think just what would have happened if Olajuwon had gotten his wish and was traded to the Miami Heat. Okay. So, but, yeah. So, maybe history would be different. Maybe the Houston Rockets would not have won any titles during the 90s. Maybe, who knows, maybe the New York Knicks win back-to-back titles. Maybe the New York Knicks win back-to-back titles in 94, 95. But Olajuwon stayed, and eventually that supporting cast that had been slowly improving, along with Smith, Thorpe, Maxwell. Then you bring in guys like Sam Cassell, Mario Ellie, Pete Chilcutt, Chucky Brown, Charles Jones, Washington Bullets, Charles Jones. Yeah. Played only 3 games for the Rockets in 1994-95, but still made some valuable contributions in the Rockets postseason run. So, yeah. All right. That's it. But that's all for throwing it back. Peace out. May God bless all of you. I'm gone.